Hi, this video is going to show you how to set up a file to have layers designed for vector cutting and vector drawing. What vector cutting is cutting through a material, and vector drawing is using vectors, paths in other words, to draw a design on top of material. Here we go. So we'll use the shape that we've used in the previous lessons, and I'm going to also teach in this lesson the image trace tool. We're going to import an image from thenounproject.com and image trace it, meaning trace the colors that are in the image onto this and turn them into paths that are then able to be drawn on top of this shape that would be cut out. The vector cut layer is set to red right now. We'll use that one, and for cutting through the material, the laser would be set to a a high power and a low speed, meaning it's giving it a lot of time as the laser passes over the material to cut through. And then for the vector draw, the powers and speeds would change. The power would be low and the speed very high so that it doesn't cut through and it only draws the shape on top of the material. So we already have our vector cut file. We'll just use this as a sample. It could be any vectors, any paths that you would like, set to 0.01 stroke with the black outline and no fill. And now we'll make the vector draw using the image trace tool. So here we go. We're going to make sure we're working on the vector draw layer by selecting the layer and the target here. And we're going to go to the Noun project and find an image that we like. It doesn't really need to be anything specific, but let's just do, I don't know, a frog. There we go. So how about this image here? This looks like a good one. It's black and white. When we select it, you can see that it's black and white. You can click get this icon. That's nice. We're not going to pay for it right now, so we'll click basic download. We'll click continue. In this case, we're going to want to use the download PNG. The file will download, and there's two ways to get this file to Adobe Illustrator these days. The first one is you can just simply, if you still see the download in the bottom of your Chrome menu, the Chrome window, you can click and drag your file to AI, hover over it for a moment, and then it'll pop up. Move your cursor with the mouse still held into your workspace and let go. And that drops it in there. Now this drops it in there as a PNG file, and that's great. However, we need to actually image trace this so that it will have paths. If we don't image trace this, this could be immediately used to raster this image onto a material, meaning it changes the way that the powers and the speeds work. It changes how high the power can be, and it actually changes the behavior of the laser. Using the raster settings actually makes the laser go back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth, and it hits every single pixel with the power that is connected to the grayscale, black being 100% power that you have set, and white being 0%, and anywhere in between, the grayscale percentage is the power that it would try to hit for every pixel that it sees. That is using the raster settings. We're not going to try to do that though. We're going to try to create a vector drawing on top of the material. So we need to turn this guy into outlines. Alright? So what we're going to do is, as with any other time we import an image, we're going to embed it. I do want to show you the other way of doing this before I do that, just in case you like it better there. So I'm going to hit delete. And the other way to import that image that we downloaded, you didn't have to hit delete, you could just wait for a moment and watch this, is file, and if you did delete and you want to get it back, hit Control Z. That will undo and get your image back. But the other way to do this is file and place and locate your downloads folder. And there's our frog. I've done this before, so there's a 1 at the end of it. And you can leave these settings. You know, if you unlink it, then it actually automatically embeds. But I'd like to link it just because I'm used to it. I hit place, and this will place the top left corner of the image onto my page. And notice how my cursor was in the top left corner once I clicked to place the image. And now I am back in the same spot as if I had dragged it in from the bottom of Chrome. Notice at the top of the screen in the ribbon, such as your ribbon. Remember, when you have an image selected, there's a few different options up here. You can crop images, which is nice. In this case, I can actually teach you how to crop because we can get rid of these words down here very quickly. So we'll hit crop image. And cropping a linked file embeds a copy of the original. The original file at the linked location is not affected. So it doesn't affect the original file, we're just affecting the embedded file, which is exactly what we want. The embedded file means it's part of the Adobe Illustrator file. Click OK, and you can use these corners and center marks to scale your crop. Change the size of your crop to be around the area you wish to keep. You can then hit enter or click apply, and that crops the embedded image. Now notice up here before it said embed without the it just said embed. Now that we cropped it, it said unembed. If we hadn't cropped it, you just simply click the word embed. Alright? I'm going to actually backtrack in a moment and show you a different way to work with this as well, in case cropping is not the best solution to getting down to the size and the shape that you wish. But for right now, we'll continue on turning this into a vector drawing. In order to do the next step, it's a simple step. You have your object selected, your PNG selected, your image, right? And it's embedded. We're going to click Image Trace. The default image trace mode is black and white. So actually what we got, even though we had previous to hitting trace a clear background, is now we have a white background. What we can do is we can now expand this design, and now we have paths that are surrounding the entire, or all of the colors. So in this case there's two colors, so there's a path surrounding the white in all areas, and there's a path surrounding the black in all areas. So what does that mean? There are actually paths that are overlapping each other where the white meets the black. So, for starters, we need to separate this guy. We'll put him up here so you can see what's happening. We need to separate this frog image and leave only the parts that we want to have drawn. In order to do so, I think the best way to do it is to get rid of the white and leave the black for this image. Sometimes it will change, depends on your image, but I'm going to get rid of the white. In order to do so, I'm going to use my regular selection tool. I'm going to click off of it. I'm going to reselect it. I'm going to right-click. I'm going to ungroup. What that does is, you notice over here in the layers, and remember we're on the vector draw layer because we're going to make this into a drawing and not a cut. Notice how all of these new layers just appeared. That's because it used to be a group and now it's not grouped. And you can see all of the shapes it takes to make that frog. Alright. Next up is, again, we're going to deselect everything, and then we're going to select all of the white areas and hit delete key on the keyboard. Selecting all the white areas. There we go, and hitting the delete key. Notice they got deleted from our layers panel. Very nice. Next up, we're going to turn this image that has fill of black and a stroke of nothing into a stroke of 0.01, so that the vector settings can follow the lines that it takes to draw this shape, and we'll turn the fill to nothing so that it doesn't want to raster the image onto the page. So we're going to select it all. We're going to change the stroke to 0.01 up here, and we're going to change the stroke color to black and the fill to nothing. And now we have a design that is traced from that original image, and we can place that by selecting and highlighting it over our design. We're going to select our objects. Let's say you have this overlapping objects here. New selection method. You can simply click that and it'll target, and it'll get everything on that layer, alright, all at once. And then you can now scale this object just like you would any other object, so we can fit it down there. I'm holding shift and dragging one of the anchor points, and then I'll put it there, and that's that. Okay, so now that you have your image with just the lines you'd like to draw on your file, draw on your material, in your secondary layer that you've labeled vector draw. You can now send this to the laser cutter. You're going to want to send it in two files though. You're going to want to send one with the vector draw label or vector draw layer showing, and only the vector draw. When you do this, you'll hit File, Print, and you'll run through the settings of the Epilog engraver. Alright. When you get to the Epilog engraver, you'll see this preview. If you don't see the image as you would see it on your artboard, you must change it. You'll also note that the document says it's 23.75 inches by 11.75 inches. This is 11 inches by 8.5 inches in this space, so clearly the media it thinks it has is different than their document. We need to change that, so we need to go into our setup. We need to make sure the Epilog engraver is selected. We'll hit Preferences. The screen on the computer connected to the laser will look a little bit different than this, but it'll still be the same options. It'll be blue, really. We're going to set the horizontal to match our horizontal, 23.75, and our vertical to match our vertical of our artboard. In order to set this in like a vector drawing way, so that it actually makes a vector drawing and doesn't cut through the material, we're going to turn the speed way up, and we'll turn the power a little bit down so it doesn't burn through. We'll turn the frequency down to about 500. It doesn't have to be perfect, but that's alright. We can make it 570, that sounds good. For the sake of the video, I'll try to make it 500. 500 is a standard number, but if it's close, we're okay. There we go, 500. We're also going to set it to vector. We only want it to do vector. 600 dpi is a good standard number to work with. Notice if we set it to vector, the raster settings turn off. There's no ability to do this. We don't need to autofocus. We'll focus it manually. We click OK. We click Print, and then we note that, by the way, oops, it's still showing that it's 8.5 by 11 and 23.75 by 11.75 for the regular document. In order to fix that, it's a little flaw in the program for some reason. You simply hit Setup again, you hit Print again, and voila, now you see your sample. And then you would hit Print. Once you hit Print for that one, that'll be sending the job over to the laser cutter. You'll see this up here, the name of your file. And then you would turn off that layer, turn on your cut layer, and do it again, but instead you would go to File, Setup, Preferences, change it to a slow speed to cut through the plywood. It tends to be about 19%, a higher power, more strength, because you're cutting through 100%, and the frequency is 500 for wood generally, as mentioned before, but if you're close to 500, then that's alright as well. Frequency is how many times per second the laser fires. We're going to click OK. We're going to click Print again, and now if we hit Print again, the second job that is sent would be the cut file. Alright, so you'd run those two files, and the project would be vector drawn and vector cut. And that's it. You're done with your project. Take it out of the laser, and you'd be able to paint it or put it together. Use strings to make a bracelet out of it. If you did that, you'd want to put some holes in it beforehand. You don't need to so you don't have to drill holes into it. But yeah, you're done with your drawing. Nice job. Thank you very much.